We'll call the meeting to order. You want to, well, go ahead, Bob.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to call this meeting to order. This is Johnson County Board of Education, and this is a called meeting. We have two items that we're going to discuss today, and I'll back up in just a minute, but the items to discuss is to discuss and approve a plan for the 2020-2021 school year due to the COVID-19 increase in Johnson County and looking at altering their schedule. Also discuss and approve the 2020 and 2021 school calendar due to changes made. They're basically the same thing. We're going to talk about the plan, then we'll talk about the school calendar. So with that, if we can stand and have a moment of silence, and then I'll ask Ms. Joanne Reese to lead us in the pledge. Ms. Reese.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. So the first item on our agenda is to discuss and approve the plan for this next year. And I think you have four options, and I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Simcox.
Yes, you do have four options in front of you, and we did survey all of our staff. The first option is the full virtual, which will begin August the 17th and go through the 28th, and then we'd reassess the situation. And that one, we had 379 responses. That one got 42.2% on that option. And I'll go through that first. The second option was staggered with 25% of students in building each day from August the 17th through the 28th, then reassess. That one got 15.6%. Option 3, which is staggered with 50% of students in building 2 days a week from August the 17th through the 28th and reassess. That one got 20.6%. And then the last option, which is option 4, school opens September the 8th. And at that time, we would choose, depending on the COVID cases, what we would do, whether it be in person or virtual. That one got 21.6% of our staff when we were polled them and responded.
So you want to discuss each one of these individually?
Okay. Option 1 is, I do want to thank, we've had several Zoom meetings with our principals, our assistant principals, our administrative staff, our lead teachers from each building were on these Zoom meetings. We had one yesterday and today. So with their help and guidance, we were able to devise a plan that we felt like was, the best thing we can under the circumstance. Of course, we wished it was normal. We wished our kids were in school right now. We wish we weren't having to deal with this, but sadly we are. So for the full virtual, which would begin August the 17th if we chose option 1, staff members will be on site, so they will still report to their classroom. Teachers will be delivering instruction over virtual platforms with posted office hours. They'll do Google Meet classrooms, Google Meet instruction, sorry. So they'll still be delivering content, and they'll be doing it from the school building. They won't be doing it from home. Students would not be on site, but they would be engaged 5 days a week in their learning because we have to still have 180 instructional days. So they'll be held accountable for their own learning. Students will receive grades based on their daily class assignments, projects, and exams. Under the full virtual, we would provide nutritional services, food for our students. It's a little bit different than it was in the spring. In the spring, we were able to provide meals to everyone, every student. We're now under USDA requirements, so they would have to complete a waiver form and sign that through Ms. Kathy's office, saying that they needed food. So this is where the bus routes would sort of be a little bit different because we could only deliver food to those who signed the form through Kathy's office. We would also have the meal pickup available at Mountain City Elementary from 11 to 12. But they would still have to sign that form saying they needed food. Whereas in the spring, we didn't have to have them sign anything. We do have a limited number of mobile devices. We have ordered 1,100 Chromebooks, if y'all remember, through our CARES Act. However, they're telling us right now we will not receive those till the end of September. It may be later than that. So we have about 800 devices that we can hand out. You know, of course, that's not enough when you're looking at approximately 2,100 kids that are going to be doing full virtual. So, you know, with that, we're going to have to ask parents, do you have a device at home that has a keyboard? If you have a device at home that has a keyboard, then that will suffice. So these devices that we're going to be handing out really need to go to families that have nothing at home to be able to access. We don't have one to give to every child. It'll have to be based on one per family. We have extended our wireless to access to the school and to central office parking lot. You know, I think we could probably try to eventually open up the computer labs for those who might need that to come in. We've talked about that. We do have student email addresses for all our students in pre-K through 12. So this will be how the teachers communicate with their students. In this plan, and you know, this is something I know that we're going to talk about, we have that Kids Corral and Kids Country would not be available. I have had some parents from the community reach out and ask if that would be an option to be able to open up Kids Country and Kids Corral. So we have been discussing that. We do have in here that employees can bring their school-age children with them, but they have to remain in the classrooms with them. They can't be roaming around the buildings. And then per Governor Lee's Executive Order 55, activities are allowed for the TSSAA COVID sports regulations. So we would follow his guidelines on that. That's just sort of like a glimpse on if we were to go full virtual.
Did you get any comments on, I know you got, that's the bigger, everybody wanted, was there any comments as to why?
I didn't have, because there was no place for comments here. I know with our teacher leaders that we had on our call today, you know, they feel very comfortable in the virtual realm with technology. I think they're just ready to get back in school. You know, they're ready to get their kids in.
Well, I was sort of leaning toward the 50, but.
Right. Yeah, I was sort of surprised how that part went. You know, I know when I did the survey the day before yesterday and they had the comment, their concerns were based around being able to provide virtual learning. They're just not quite sure yet what to do. So it's providing that training that we can have them, you know, feel a little bit more comfortable, because this is new realm for us.
The other question I have, I know there's kids out there that aren't, they don't have a board at home, and they don't have internet at home. And I know we're holding them responsible for that, but I don't know that we can totally hold them responsible until we get them Chromebook.
Right. And we don't have enough for every student. Yeah.
I mean, you know, if we've got a senior that can't get to it, or if we've got an 8th grader that's doing well in school, but parents just can't get them to where they can get internet access.
Right.
Or won't get them.
Yeah.
There's a can't and a won't. And if they fall behind, I don't know that we can fault them for that.
Well, I've got similar concerns that you do. If we can't, however we do this, and whatever combination of virtual there is, if you've got families, and there are going to be families who say, I don't have this, and we've given them all out, they don't have access as a school system, we're required to provide it for them. We got to provide education. I mean, we don't have a choice. So what do you do then? So I've got that same concern. Virtual.
One suggestion on that. Won't we just delay school until January and then go through the summer?
That's a long time to delay.
That's a long time delay, but it's been delayed by a year too.
We have to still account for 180 instructional days. We have to account for 180 instructional days.
Okay, so you get 180 days from January all up through February, March, April, May, and June.
I don't know that we could meet the state board requirement on that one, to be honest.
You still have the same problem with the fire. It's still die down after the election. Well, you don't know that. Yeah. So all it is, but we can't assume that. Right now, I'm just looking today, there's 13 school-aged children reported positive.
The only concern I have about that is we're gonna be in flu season with that time frame, and if COVID's still around too, we've got double viruses at the same time. Which we already closed anyway around that time for flu, and so like I'm not, an expert on COVID, but we could possibly have two viruses circulating at that point, so.
How many times in the past have we closed down for food?
Last year we closed 5 days. I think the year before that, we had to close some, which it was more due to the fact we didn't have staff. Our staff was out sick. So the past 2 years, we have had to close some days for flu. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, let's look at option 2.
Okay. The main difference with option 2 is, of course, we would ask 25% of our students to be in the building each day. This would start August the 17th. What you got to understand with this one, for example, on Monday, if you had the last name beginning with A through E, you would be in the classroom. All other students would be home learning virtually. So you still have 5 days of instruction going on, but if for A through E, they're going to be in the classroom on Monday, F through K on Tuesday. Wednesday would be all virtual learning for all students, and we would do a deep cleaning of the building. Thursday would be L through R, and Friday would be S through Z. So even though a kid was not in the classroom in person, they're still at home learning virtually. So they still have instruction going on, they just wouldn't be in the classroom unless it's that one specific day that week. Nutritional services would be a little bit different. We could not use the bus routes for that. So it would have to be picked up from every elementary school would be available from 11 to 12. Everything else is pretty much the same, except we would be able to have Kids Corral and Kids Country open before and after school for our employees and for students attending that day. Staff would be required to wear a mask, and we strongly encourage our students to wear a mask. Option.
I had one more question. He was talking about the kids have to fill out a form to get food. Is that every school-age child? Just one just funny.
That was only available for the kids that are enrolled in school.
If they
Either
have to,
virtual or
and they still have to fill out the form. And does that qualify?
they'll qualify, but they have to be enrolled.
She just has to have documentation from that parent that they need food.
They have to go back and build the whatever, and enter them in the computer just the same as when we're in school. The kids go through the serving lines, and he's had number in when we do.
What would be the difference in this Kids Corral and after school thing for staff and kids and having the people, regular students in school?
Well, this is on option 2 that we have kids in school 25% of the day. So we would still have Kids Country and Kids Corral open before and after school if we did this option.
Just for the kids that are in school that day.
Just for the kids that are in school that day. So if Kevin is in school that day and his parent needs for him to stay in Kids Corral that day, he can. But he wouldn't be available for him the next day because he wouldn't be in school.
Then what kind of protection is the kid going to have?
Kind of what?
PPE situation with kids.
They'll have the same, the masks and gloves and Lori?
9-to-1.
Yes, and 9-to-1. With childcare, you can't have more than 9 students per 1 adult. So it'll be very small groups.
And one of the other issues with Kids Country is it's a parent's choice versus a school requirement. So if I'm a parent and I choose that, then that's different than us saying that you have to be in school.
Right.
So,
Yes.
all right, option 3.
Option 3 is pretty much like option 2, except 50% of students would be in the building twice a week. So if you had the last name A through M, you would attend Monday and Tuesday. The others would attend virtually. Wednesday would be all virtual, and then Thursday and Friday would be N through Z with A through M at home learning virtual. But everything else would be the exact same as option 2.
So you figured out how many kids are A through M and how many are N through Z?
We divided it equally among the district.
Okay.
Yeah.
And option 4.
And then option 4 is schools would open on September the 8th. And then depending on the number of cases that are going on in our county at that time, then we would have to choose, are we going to go in person with virtual option available for those that signed up for it. And we had 330, Ms. Miller, 332 sign up for they wanted virtual. They didn't want to come in person, so we would have that still available. Or we could do full virtual, or we could do the staggered with the 25% or the staggered with the 50%, depending on our COVID cases. You know, I would pray that they would be down by then and we could offer in-person classes, but you know, I just don't know how it's going to look in September. So that is the 4 options.
So your option 4 essentially is a combination of all of this.
Really, it is. We would have to assess where we are right before September 8th and see how we could open at that time.
And if you open on September the 8th, what about breaks?
If we were to open September the 8th, because again, we have to have 180 instructional days in our calendar. That's a state board requirement. We can't get past that. So I think Ms. Miller has your packet on there, which is what we're voting on, number 2. But if we did start on September the 8th, we would have to, take away our fall break. We would take away Veterans Day, Martin Luther King Day, and President Day. So that means we would have to add 15 days to the end of the calendar, which would have us getting out June the 17th to be able to meet that 180 instructional days. We do have, if you remember, in our calendar, we have 18 days built in. 13 are because we go extended time, and then we add the 5 on that we can back off. So if we were to back off those 5, that would put us out on June the 10th. I do know that systems are putting in waivers from the state that they can use on their extended days, which is our 13 days, to have 5 of those days waived by the state for staff development. So if we were able to back that off, that would put us off, I think it was June the 3rd or 4th. 5 more days from the 10th. The 3rd, it's the 3rd or the 4th, I think. June 3rd. So if we were to back off those days, that would put us at June the 3rd if we did option 3, or option 4, I'm sorry.
Talk about, I'm not trying to control the conversation. I got questions. Anybody jump in if you got questions. Childcare, Lori. Okay, so childcare is a parent decision. My kids went to there. I know I had to have that because I work. Didn't have any place else for my kids to go. So do you have the number who are interested in enrolling, and how would childcare work?
She has, at 45, 45 right now at Mountain City interested in attending, and 5 at Rome Creek. So if we had 40 that was at Mountain City, we'd have to have 5 classrooms. 5 classrooms and 10 people.
And you'd only need 1 classroom at Rome Creek, right?
Yes, and 4 people.
And these are parents who have asked, given all the circumstances that we have, these are parents who've asked to have this available, right?
Yes.
Yes.
So how would you staff that? That was our issue this past year.
It depends on the option we choose. If we choose the option where we go back virtually and everybody's working, then
Middle fall.
the systems could run it. That would give them a job to do that day.
Okay. So let me ask you a question, or whoever. If we decide to go back in September, are we able to pay everybody and employ everybody a full year in August?
We are not. Tina met with Russell today. Our teachers, our bus drivers, our custodians, they're salaried positions, so they get paid. They'll get paid in August. The 2 groups that are hourly are our assistants and our cafeteria workers. So they only get paid for the hours that they work. So if we don't go back to September the 8th, they would not get a paycheck in August. Tina did check with Russell today on, you know, first of all, fire, those are the two groups that are not salaried, fire, they hourly, and how could we maybe change that? But I don't think that we can based on what Russell said.
Yeah.
You want to share that?
Based
Tina?
on the numbers that he was using, it wouldn't be possible. He said that we would have to take what we're paying them now, divide it out into number of pay periods. And with the number of pay periods, we have to divide that salary or that check by the number of days in that pay period. If it's more than 10 days per pay period, we get into the situation 11, 12, 13, they're not even making minimum wage.
Let me ask you this, with what Lori's talking about of needing staff and with having feeding meals, could we employ those people? I mean, they're hourly, right?
Mhm.
Could we employ them in August to do that?
We could employ them in August. The only problem is going to be when we go into June, we're going to be past the 10 months that we budgeted.
So could we use the money that we have in reserves?
You can transfer anywhere you
I
want.
mean, this is a kind of an emergency,
And we actually know that number. We got that yesterday
Yes.
but the number
for
in
in reserves,
reserves.
and it was,
Yeah, we had, we actually carried over just a little bit over 4 million, but just a bit over 1 million has to go into the OPEB. So we now have more than 1 million in OPEB. And then, so in our reserves, we had to leave an undesignated amount. And so we had about 2 million in reserves, a little bit over 2 million.
We could take care of those employees and take care of our students and take care of our parents if we were to do that.
We did that.
Kathy, can you feed if we were to do that?
Alright,
And I see, like, if we didn't go back to Labor Day,
Mhm.
I could operate seamless summer, just like I did this summer, but that's only through August 31st.
Again, if we decided to utilize reserves, we're not talking about an exorbitant amount of money. And I mean, again, it's an emergency situation. So we would have the funds to take care of that.
Well,
It's hard to get people's expressions when we have masks on.
no, can we, that's federal. Can we do that?
Well, I'm talking about taking it out of our reserves.
All right, can we take it out of our reserve and give it to?
Well, if we employ, it's a good question. If we were to employ teachers' assistants and food service workers,
Mhm.
we're paying them, we're buying the food, it's our facilities, until time rolls around for your federal funds to kick in. Kevin's got a good question. Can we do that? Would there be anything to prohibit that? I mean, we're not asking them for money.
Running on gray area, it's January. There's gray areas out there everywhere. I was just curious.
I mean, because they're not federal employees. We're just getting federal funds to do what we do. We're doing something outside of your federal funds with schools. I mean, whatever we decide, I think we all want to take care of all of our staff. And again, we've got, 50 parents or parents of 50 kids.
Well, and you do that, you may have more. I don't know. There's probably parents out there that
I haven't signed up yet.
don't expect it, and if it happens,
know about it. Well, well,
I've not heard from the principal.
They don't have kids after care.
No, they
program.
don't have that program anyway.
Like a lot of the folks from, I know Laurel community and some from Doe would go to Mountain City Elementary.
Yeah.
And then we could utilize some of those people, Lori, for your daycare.
We would have to. We don't have the numbers.
Okay. So what about space?
We don't have space.
So what are you gonna do?
Teachers are virtual in their rooms, and we're not gonna be able to run childcare out of their rooms. We'd have to have, I mean,
have to be an empty room.
it has to be an empty room.
So we would have to use the library, the music room, the kids' corral room, the gym.
Well, I mean, what is the total number you need? Because you're saying you're not running all those same routes. That's what you said.
Well, we run the routes, it just, unless they sign up for the food, they wouldn't stop.
Well, we're talking, I think, well, if you went to September the 8th, we're talking, you don't have school or virtual.
And then I can't operate like the buses. I would have
You have to do like the summer feeding program, right?
some.
Yeah, but we're still providing food.
At the elementary school.
They'd have a pickup spot.
So, I mean,
Okay, I have a question.
Okay.
We're gonna start, let's just say we're gonna start in September.
Mhm.
Okay, let's say in January, we have a blizzard,
Uh-huh.
okay, what's that gonna do? We're out a week or week and a half, whatever.
We've actually talked about that a little bit, is seeing if we can get guidance from the state that, you know, if we're doing virtual learning anyway, and our kids by then will be accustomed to it, instead of having all the snow days, I think we could probably have virtual snow days in essence. So it would not count against our kids if you're on a snow day, unless it's just really, really bad and power's out and all that, then they would learn virtually while they're at home. So that would take the need for some of our snow days that we wouldn't have to worry about.
and you'd have equipment by then.
Yes, we should have equipment by then. Right, Rob?
That's your phone.
We got his earphones on.
Question.
We have been thinking about that.
So again, what about the kids who don't have equipment? We have to provide them education.
We do. That is a concern, but that's a concern whether we start August 17th or September the 8th.
Right, it's a
Yeah.
concern for all of these,
Yeah,
but what are we gonna do?
Right now, the way we have it written is it would be first come, first served. We would have to ensure that those parents understand, you know, this device is if you don't have anything at home, you know, not just for everyone. Do you have a device at home that has a keyboard? Then, you know, save this for somebody who needs a device. And then the question is going to happen is if we have these 800 plus people that need a device, and then we run out, and we still have kids that need a device, you know, I'll be honest, I don't know what we will do in that case because we don't have the devices. Right now, we've opened up our internet access in our parking lots. We've talked about opening up our computer labs in our buildings for parents to come in. But, you know, as far as, and that's about all that we can do as a school system. I know I've talked to, you know, Mike's talked to me several times about opening up his church. You know, I know some of the preachers have reached out that they're wanting to open up their hotspots from their churches so people can use their internet, you know, from there. Some community centers are. That's not all we can offer right now as far as internet access. Stephen?
I just wanted to say, just to make sure that we're all thinking on the same page. Board decision is going to be the board decision, but the options 1, 2, and 3, full virtual, 25%, 50%, they all have the exact same device requirement, and that's a device per student. Coming 25%, coming 50% does not lessen the need for virtual. They will all still be virtual students 4 days a week, or 2 days a week, depending on whether you went with option 2 or option 3. So the device demand does not decrease at all on options 1, 2, and 3. And we don't anticipate having our order of 1,100 by September the 8th. And I know that probably muddies the waters more than clears it up, just so we all know the reality of what we're facing. I just wanted to throw that out.
What about opening up the computer labs? What about opening up the computer labs for those who don't?
We can open up the computer labs, you know, if we have the staff, you know, available, especially during the daytime, you know, we would have staff there, depending on if they're doing childcare or bus routes, if we did full virtual. Before and after, we can utilize that with Leaps in 21st Century.
End of September at the earliest, is that correct, Mr. Sutherland? The 1,100 Chromebook order by the end of September, we hope.
That's correct. Ms. Paula had an order of about 100. The last word we got on that, we're looking at about 3 more weeks to receive that. our mass order of 1,100 plus. They're talking about late September at the earliest.
Ms. Hall, is her order like?
She placed hers in August, March, April,
Yeah.
March or April,
Yeah.
and we still don't have those.
I guess we're not the only ones that are ordering Chromebooks.
No.
Europe ordered 96 right around that same time as well, Bill.
Dr. Simpkins, I might add, I've been taking a lot of phone calls, a lot of parents, and I think they are under the assumption that you have to have a Chromebook, and that's why they keep asking for these. So now I am telling them we are having such a huge demand that if you have anything with a keyboard at home, you need to use that so we can give these families that have nothing something. And I've had several say, oh, well, I have a laptop. Laptop is fine, whatever you have. But I have 2 kids. And so then we have to explain to them, you're going to have to set up a schedule at home. I mean, it's not going to be perfect, but this is the way we can get supply as many families as we can. While one is online, the other one has to be doing their written assignments, their reading assignments, whatever, and then you're going to have to flip-flop. And so we told them, the best thing that you can do is set up a schedule in your home. Kid A, this is your time, kid B, this is your time. And I've had several say, I never thought of that, I understand that, thank you. So I think that when we get that out there to all the parents, I think we're going to see that not as many, because I know of one family, just one family, that has requested 6 Chromebooks. And then, of course, that's not going to happen. And everybody that has like 3 children, they've requested 3 Chromebooks. So I think once we get this out there to the parents, that's going to lessen some.
We might need to stop saying Chromebooks and just say, have
A
computer
device.
access.
A device.
What about CTE?
Our plan for CTE right now is going all virtual the first couple of weeks, and I've talked to most of my teachers, and we're planning on getting the safety aspect out of the way, so a lot of that can be done online. And actually, the first part we'll go through is OSHA 10, that's 10 hours online regardless. So we get that, and then hopefully numbers after a couple of weeks has went down, and then we can use more of the plan 2, plan 3 type thing, and get some of those kids in there for the heavy skill classes.
Can you have CTE and not have school?
We can't offer all the same classes as CTE. We're looking at a program called ICEV, and it is approved on the Tennessee State Standards list, so we can incorporate that and for classroom. So my teacher will be trained on that next Thursday.
Oh, what about special ed?
Well, we're looking at it, if conditions get to where it's safe, that we would still have our CDC or self-contained like classes, if it was safe to have children in the building, just like we're looking at K2 doing the same thing. That's what was in our original plan before all this happened. And that would still be our plan if that would be possible, but right now, we just can't put children in that danger.
But can you, yeah, and I realize that. I guess my question is, can special ed be done virtually?
There's different kinds of special ed. Some of it can. The children who are in the CDC classes, it's very difficult to do that. One of the things that we did with some of the money we got to IDEA for special ed was get 10 iPads that we can download apps on that don't need internet. And so 10's always a gift, but we'll send those home with those students so that they can do activities on the iPad, even though they really could not do something on a computer. And even though the state is not allowing packets to be sent home or whatever, and for the CDC classrooms, we will have boxes with some hands-on materials because those children need things that they can actually manipulate in addition to having operating or anything that they really need to be in the school building. And as soon as it's safe to do it, we'll do it. And we'll even, this year, even if children are on virtual, we're going to try to work it out where they can come into the school building with their therapies because we haven't been able to do speech or OT. We hope to do that.
How many of those students you have?
There's probably close to 40 in our 3 different classes, and then we have a teacher who has some CDC students that she keeps in her school, but so that they don't have to.
Is there any way that you could listen to those kids like lips on dough?
Yeah, that's when it's safe to do, that's what we're gonna do, and we'll keep them business from each other. We just can't do that right now, but that was the initial plan, that plan you would do originally. But it just won't work now because of all the case.
Let's talk about that a second. I know we got from lawyers, it's confidential, but we talk about it again.
Yeah,
It's basically the critical infrastructure thing that went.
it is until unless the governor decides to change that.
Basically, if someone is exposed to someone that has the virus, you're out for 14 days. Is there any way we could run school like that?
Not with kids in the building.
So,
It would be very hard.
I don't want to hear the other pieces right now.
But Wendy found a lot of things changed today. So,
the governor did this thing today about school.
Mhm.
Was there anything in that new? I didn't get to see it.
I didn't get to see that one.
Wendy?
You want me to go ahead and do that now? Okay, so this just throws a loop into everything because we kind of had the critical infrastructure and stuff kind of planned out, so we could at least have that. Well, the governor did that part, or, did the part on the critical infrastructure, so that does mean, or the lawyers, unless the governor changes it, that does make it to where our staff cannot work if they are exposed. Before, if they were exposed and they weren't positive themselves, they could still come. But now, if they're exposed, they can't. Okay, so that's the staff piece. The other part of this morning, I was on a conference call with the Regional Department of Health, with Dr. Piercy. And the part of that is, they initially, way back, said they didn't know how this was spreading kids, because we still didn't have any data because we shut school down right when all this started. So now, since then, we've seen with Bible schools, camps, sports, that it's spreading like wildfire in kids. Johnson County is the highest right now out of all these counties. Okay, so on top of that, the 6 feet, 10-minute rule. Before, if we were going to say in the class, I'll give you an example, in the classroom, we said everybody 6 feet apart, and it was supposed to be like if you were only, say if I had COVID, maybe these that are just closest to me within 10 minutes would be contact. Now, they were saying this morning, Dr. Kersey, that the 10-minute rule applies throughout the day. So you could technically be, we're going to continue to change classes in the hallways for the schools that do. You could potentially be in different, you could be in contact with somebody 2 minutes, but that accumulates through the day. Or if you're in the classroom where we weren't going to switch classes, that entire classroom is basically exposed if somebody in there has COVID, because and the teacher. So that put us in a very bad spot right there.
And that happened this morning.
And that happened this morning. and they have a complicated rubric. If we do go eventually about contact, it's difficult for me to understand, so that's the little 10-minute rule. It's basically not just that one time, it's over the entire day.
My question would be, given all that, there's no way to do anything right now.
Exactly.
So I'm just looking at option 4 there. We've got until September 8th. Look at it, to plan more. You know, if you went at September the 8th and you had your teachers in class, or however you're going to do with your teachers, it would give them the option of a little more time to, number one, plan, a little bit more time for families to plan, and a little bit more time for, you could have the teachers do what Edna's talking about. The teachers could actually make contact with their class and talk to, you know, each of these parents and say, okay, Serena, you got 3 kids. Now, here's what we need. We need a keyboard, and we need schedules. And so how many Chromebooks? We might find a reduction in that. That would give you a little more time. And then you got these other options here that by September 8th, whether this gets better or worse, you've got the option of going full virtual, which you got a little more planning time, or you got the option of staggered students. I mean, just, I don't see how you do anything right now. Yeah, love to hear from you. Solve this problem.
I wish I could, till we get a vaccine, we'll probably not be able to do.
Right.
Here's our little thing that I mentioned a second ago was, I mean, I know we've got to get started, and that's the only thing between option 4 and option 1 is that we can get started virtually, because where there's no vaccine, there is potential for reinfection after a 3-month period. So if someone gets COVID, they actually have immunity for 3 months, is what they're saying. And you potentially could get it again if you get exposed to somebody again. And with all these household contacts, that's a problem. So, for example, the ones that are getting it now, they're probably going to, this is what, August, especially November, December, they might get it again. And then you're in flu season again. And if it gets, all the ones that have it now, possibly get reinfected, then you're right back to where we are now with these cases. So, I mean, I don't know how that's going to play out, but we don't have a vaccine, so it potentially could recirculate. I don't know. They don't know that at this point either.
I have a question for you. This thing where they're talking about plasma.
I read on that yesterday.
Those that have had it and got cured, they're requesting that the plasma come from them to give to other people. Is that correct?
It's one of the treatment options because they have the antibodies that fight off that, but there's still, you know, different things that you got to make sure that they're healthy enough to receive that. Another person that got, you know, things that you can't have those kind of transfusions with. That's just one of the research things they're trying. People that have COVID, that there's like no other medication option or something for.
Of course, another thing is get those people to come forward that have had it to give the plasma.
Right. But that's just kind of one of those research.
I mean, I'd be willing to do it myself if I had it. I won't because they didn't.
Yeah, we've already been down that road trying to get people to say, you know, it's not that bad. We need to know so we can contact trace. That's the big thing with this. But another thing too, I mean, this is, I'm sorry to keep putting things up, but if we do wind up going with the September 8th thing, we need to discuss sports, because I know they left TSSAA in that, left that kind of open regardless of critical infrastructure and stuff. And if we don't have school September 8th, but we're still going to allow sports or games, we've got people going to this county, we've got people coming into this county. So if we do that option, we need to see what we want to do with sports.
I agree with you.
Because we have games already scheduled on the calendar for football and volleyball, like August 17th, August 20th.
I just knew that was a big topic, so I was kind of leaving that to last week.
Going in there now, myself.
I've got a question. Sorry, you said you had, the family had 6 folks that said they needed a Chromebook, all right? And when they log on, they all 6 would have to log on to be counted present. Is that correct?
We are going to do something, and I spoke with Michelle about this, making sure I'm not knocking anything over. We're actually going to take attendance and, you were thinking of the name thing, what we call it now, Michelle, assignment-based attendance. Right. And one county is doing this. I had watched a webinar the other day. One county is doing, they're calling it project-based attendance. What they are doing is taking attendance, and they are giving students not only dates that something is due, but times something is due. So you have an English project that is due on November the 10th at 4 o'clock that afternoon, and that's how your attendance is going to be based. And I think I said English, I don't know. If your project is there on time, has been turned in on time, then you are going to be counted present. If it's not, then you're going to be counted absent.
I just worry about these hollers that don't get daylight till
Right.
10 o'clock. That they ain't got internet and they don't have. I just worry about the kids that don't have the opportunities that all kids have.
Or the access, or yeah.
Or the parents that are willing to help them. If we go full virtual,
Yeah.
Well, that probably won't be any of those virtual issues though, because on the days you don't go to school, we'd still have that problem. So are you looking at them attendance wise from the time that I sign on? Like Monday morning, I signed on at 8 and I signed out at 3? Or are you, like you say, project based?
They're not going to be, it's my understanding, they're not going to be online, and that's so many parents have contacted me. I'm not doing this if my kid has to be online for 6 or 6.5 hours. I have told them, that 6.5 hours is probably going to be maybe 15 to 30% on the internet. Then you've got to have your lunchtime, your potty breaks, your class assignments, your reading, your writing, whatever you're going to do, whatever happens in that 6.5 period at school, that's what needs to happen at home. So
explain just in a few simple words, virtual school, because what are the teachers doing? It's not the teacher standing in front of a screen like a virtual meeting and you're watching all day.
How's that going?
Angie?
Yeah.
Okay, so for example, I've been with every grade level in my elementary school. So like we had a grade level plan. And so for example, with 3rd grade, but we have a new ELA text. We could not have had a better time because we have materials that kids can take home and use. So teachers are creating PowerPoint for the ELA one. So they're creating their lessons. They might even be recording parts of like what they would be doing as far as daily instruction. They might also be linking the video or something about a certain topic. For example, if they're going overseas, they might link a video from this Partners for Digital program that we're going to purchase for students. And so they might have them work through part of that module on Partners for Digital. And then they may also have them working through their PowerPoint that they would have had in the class anyway. And they would have links embedded in that would take students to different activities. And so, and then they would also have them assignments that they would need to complete. It could be things that go with the textbook series in the workbook, or it could be a writing assignment. So it's just the teachers are going to create whatever they would typically be doing in a classroom. There will be parts of it that will be in the online component, but then there'll be parts of it that will be
That's,
Does that help?
It's the same thing with math,
that's a good explanation.
Mhm.
I
same
think.
thing with the other stuff.
Well, you got two working parents, and that child is with a babysitter, grandmother, or aunt, or uncle. You know, that just, it just throws it all out there, you know, if they're gonna be able to do it. And I just don't want them, for lack of a better word, punished for not
Having the resources that they could have.
having the resources they need to get that assignment done, and then not get it done, and they get a 0. From no fault of their own, you know. I don't know.
Our elementary teachers have talked about that, and so, you know, we understand, that especially with elementary kids, they can't stay at home by themselves today.
Right.
And so parents are working, they may have to be staying with a grandparent that doesn't have it. So the teachers, we talked through that, you know, we're gonna have to be gracious and give them, you know, maybe a couple of days worth of assignments, or, you know, be posting things every couple of days, but not necessarily, but it's not necessarily due the very next day, you know. So we just talked through that, especially at the elementary level, about, you do have to have expectations, but you also have to have realistic expectations. So,
Right. Well,
you
you
know,
know,
those assignments might not be due, you know, for 3 or 4 days, you know, and so that parents work, because work schedules are different and that kind of thing. So it means that a parent may not be able to get through all of it today, but they're gonna have extra some tomorrow. And so as long as, you know, they're getting the work turned in by the point that, you know, realistic with the future, and that work will be counted for them.
They could catch up on Saturday, for instance.
Right,
Yeah.
because, you know, that's all we're gonna have to do.
This may make them better prepared for college, because that's kind of the way you do anymore on online classes.
And the parents do not have to be logged on. There's a big, huge misconception out there that they have to be logged on at 8:00 and you're done at 3 or 3:30. And we've told them, no, you do not have to be logged in a certain amount of time or a certain time each day. But we are suggesting that you do have structure, and you're going to say, okay, we're going to start logging on at 9:00. You know, this is the time we're going to do this and this. And we do realize that not everybody is going to be on their 6.5 hours spending that time each day, because you've got some that excel, they're going to get done a lot quicker. So we told parents, you know, we're not going to look at 30 minutes short or 2 hours short, whatever. So,
I think you two have answered a lot of questions and probably alleviated a lot of fears.
Another misconception that goes back to the spring, we talked a lot about one glaring misconception, that it would be just like it was in the spring, where we just provided resources. I think we've done a lot to clear that one up already for tonight. But another misconception that sort of goes hand in hand with that is that if a student is struggling, then they're kind of on their own a little bit, and that wasn't completely true in the spring, but initially it probably certainly felt that way, and that their parents or grandparents would be expected to fill in those gaps for them. And that wouldn't be the case this fall either. I mean, our teachers are expected to make contact even with the students who have activity issues. They'll be expected to make contact via telephone or whatever means necessary, to remind that Google Meet, Zoom, whatever it takes.
And we have talked for those rare circumstances that they do not have a device, they do not have access. And the governor has said, don't do paper pencil packets or booklets. But, you know, in some cases, we may have to do that for those.
Well, again, could you open, if you were virtual, could you open, like if you were a student at Mountain City Elementary and you're struggling or you don't have access, could you open, or, I mean, you're not having a big group.
Right.
You have a student make an appointment to come in and utilize the computer and have a teacher to help them, and, you know, they've got a mask. Everybody should be safe.
And, you know, we did that in the spring for those kids. I mean, so that could be that would be an easy.
Mr. Henley and I talked about that as I was driving back from my appointment today, but that's something that we certainly want to do.
and maybe have a staff member on hand, maybe even in the evening hours. For those that was the time they could do it.
Wendy, do you see any way to go back to school right now?
I don't, not for the next couple of weeks, but I mean, I hate to delay kind of all the way to September. I mean, because if we're gonna have to do virtual, it could possibly even be longer. We'll keep it September 8th. I don't know.
Well, what this is though, this option, I mean, September's what, 5 weeks away? So this option is go to September, make sure you're planning before September, which may make a better product. And then if it's worse, not continue this, but go to one of these other options, which may be full virtual. Who knows what will be in 5 weeks? Might.
Things I'm looking at here, you got nearly 80% of your teachers want to get started.
They do.
So as far as the spread of the virus, how much more risky is it just to go ahead and go full virtual versus wait till September the 8th?
Well, if you won't even, well, the same, because you won't be in school for 2 weeks starting.
Well, you're going to have teachers come in, though, right?
Right. Well, the nurses come in too, so they're gonna be screening the staff and questionnaires and temps at their school, you know, for the ones that are there, the teachers. And we'll just have to kind of they'll be in their room, so it ain't like we have the kids there. You know, we'll be virtual, they'll be there, but we will be doing the screening questionnaire and then get them out if they have those symptoms or have been contacted.
Okay, if, let's say a teacher does get close contact, the quarantine for 14 days, and they work from home, if they have internet and computer.
They can, because we have the telework option. I mean, they could possibly do that.
But could they do virtual with their students from home?
If they have the device and the access and, you know, at home they could.
It sounds to me like that option one's gonna be the best thing right now, and then that's gonna give the teachers and the students the opportunity to learn this and get started. And then if something happens, you know, if they can't go back to school in September, the 1st of September, then they've already got some training, and we're not having to go back and try to get that done then. So we can get the trial and error thing right now, see how it's gonna work, and see how many people do have access and can get the access. And, I mean, that's just the way I feel about it right now, since we were in this situation and they're putting the more regulations on it. I mean, you could have a whole classroom that would be out if you're there. And they have.
It could shut you down the first day you start back. Yeah.
With these guidelines.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I think. I mean, I think getting us, you know, even those first 2 weeks, I think it would be a trial and error period, so like all the way to September 8th. Then we'll have another 2 weeks of trial and error period, when we could already have that underway.
Now, you guys are professionals, the teachers, actually, you're a nurse yourself. But from what I'm gathering, it seems like people sort of leaning toward option one.
Based on the survey, you know, that was 42%.
We're going to do sports, shaking their head no.
We're gonna do in sports.
Well, right now with sports, as far as practices, you know, we're on hold with practices. We're quarantined till August the 10th, and then practice can start back for high school football. For high school. Like golf, I actually had a tournament today, but there's only 4 golf members. You know, golf is non-contact, so that's not really an option. I mean, that's not really an issue. You know, as far as practices, I can tell you it has a first district, the regions from Morristown up, you know, the ones that haven't been quarantined, they're still practicing. You know, I don't see how we could play our first football game August 21st. You know, I don't foresee that for football. I think volleyball, and it varies depending on if it's middle school or high school. You know, of course, that's the pleasure of the board, but, you know, I know practices would still continue, but I just don't see how we could have games right now. But Stephen, you want to, because we had a call the other day.
You said everything I was about to say. I would just add, we feel like, even though we all have, you know, in the pit of our stomach concerns about every option out there, but with the governor's last executive order, that covers for that. So we know that we're in the clear to conduct that activity if we choose to do that, because the governor has upheld that.
You know, if you look at part of the COVID cases, Washington County is huge. Carter County is huge. A lot of these surrounding counties are huge. And so if you have a game, and let's say that in Johnson County, we're all wearing masks, we got virtual school, we're all staying fairly healthy. We were green while everybody else was red. Now that's shot. And you have a ball game, everybody's gonna wanna be there. Everybody's gonna be crowded in the stands. You're gonna have people from other counties, you're gonna be mixing at a concession stand. Then what do we do?
Hampton, we got Hampton, they're selling 50 tickets for home side, 50 tickets for the visitor side, and no concession.
They severely limited our capacity.
Big time.
We've talked about saying, if you want to hear this now, is it okay?
Sure. Yeah,
We talked about, we have 6 sets of aluminum bleachers that are in good shape. We talked about adding them around the visitor side, not necessarily for visitors, but for whomever. But we will be with severely limited capacity. And then if we sell concessions, we would put a tent on the visitor side in addition to the existing places. And we would only sell, canned drinks, bottled drinks, bags of chips.
Prepackaged.
Not sell popcorn, we won't be selling hot dogs and nachos. Things they walk up, grab, pay, go. If we were to do that, but, we would be at a severely limited capacity.
Well, and isn't part of this question dependent on everybody else? I mean, the other counties may say, we're not gonna do this.
It is.
Dr. Simcox has let me sit in on some of her superintendent calls because football and athletics was at the top of the agenda. And one thing that everyone has acknowledged is that, well, we're allowed to go forward, we'll go forward as best we can, but when our game against, say, Unicoi County comes on October the 23rd, I just made that up, so don't look at your schedule. You may not have that game because they may not be able to come. They might be shut down, and vice versa. So we've all acknowledged that there's a very real possibility we might get in 2 or 3 games because we may, even if we're okay, we may not have an opponent to play.
And we have, 2 or 3 schools in Sullivan County?
So north, south, central, and east.
So they have a high rate of all over there in Sullivan County, so.
Mm-hmm.
They've set the rules.
Yeah, they have.
Like right now, if somebody had a game, like the season was started and we were in the shape we were in right now, and somebody was supposed to play us Friday night, they would be missing that game because we wouldn't be playing. So that's the reality.
Another question I have, if we go option 1, start out 17. In September, the governor chooses to shut down school, can we continue to go virtual?
Oh, at that point, I mean, I foresee us continuing to go virtual. I don't think he would shut us down from virtual. I think he would shut down anybody that was in person.
So it'd just be okay. But if we were in person, we could change to.
We could change to virtual, yeah.
But
And be a lot better equipped than we were.
I expect that. I expect it to be shut down again in September. I expect everything to be shut down in September.
And if you go virtual and then things miraculously clear up, at some point you could go back to school, and then if they go bad, or if we have a blizzard that takes us out for a week or 2 weeks.
Then we can go virtual.
Or flu, we could do virtual.
We can go virtual. If
we close schools.
If we close schools, yeah. If we got to the point where we had to close schools.
Well, because I think the times that we've closed schools mainly has been because we didn't have staff.
Yeah, it's not been because of student numbers. It's been we've not had the staff or the subs to fill the positions. That's why we've had to close.
So we've heard from Ms. Reese, we've heard from Mr. Payne, Mr. Long.
And just those questions of the students having access and the availability. That's the only problem I have. We need to go to school. Kids need to be in school.
I agree.
That's the bottom line. And I like for them to be in person in school. Can't do that. Kids need to be around other kids.
Mm-hmm. They do. They do.
Well, I think they're around other kids right now. That's the problem.
Yeah, that's true.
'Cause my kids have been in contact with some of the kids up here that have been, and they've had to be tested. So fortunately, they're negative. But I don't think that's stopped anybody being around anybody.
I mean, I'd say let's get started.
Ms. Matson?
Well, I'd like to say that if we're going to go virtual, every student have some kind of device to learn with.
We got to figure that out.
We do have to figure that out, and we are trying our hardest. And I mean,
We can't tell them first come, first served.
Shortchange any student.
but if we don't have them to give, that's the problem. It'll be into September, 1st of October, and that's wishful thinking.
Well, and I just wonder if there's individuals in the community. I know I have extra old computers that we don't use, laptops we don't use anymore, and I wonder if there's anybody, who would come forward and help with that.
But I think if we're able to open up our labs, that might help.
You got your labs at each school, which is convenient.
That would probably help some.
What about the keyboards for iPads?
We talked about iPads actually the other day. The thing with iPads is they're so old and haven't been updated. We don't know if they'd run some of the platforms.
I spoke to Mr. Henley a little while ago, or actually, I think this conversation was yesterday, and he had spoken to his teachers about it, and in particular, Ms. Dishman. And she felt like she had some that would be usable. So even though it doesn't have a full keyboard on it, it's got a keyboard on the screen, it certainly would be the cell phone. And would probably a student, it might even come down to looking at who's got what classes scheduled, which one's more writing intensive versus, that sort of thing. But with our iPads included, we feel like we can get by on the hill till the rest of them come in, if we need to, if that's the decision. We feel like we can. The only thing that we can't solve, and I asked a colleague in Unity County today what they're doing, and they're in the same boat as us about the locales in their county back around Flag Pond, just like Trade and Laurel here, where there's no service. That's something that they're still trying to think through, and they're doing the exact same thing as us. They're opening up the internet site at the old Flag Pond school. Same thing we're doing, opening up wireless sites at our schools. It's not a good answer, just to be frank.
And it might be a good learning experience for everyone. I mean, really, this can be done.
Yeah.
So what we're hearing from everybody is option one. So tell us about option one and before we vote, go to number 2 on here, the school calendar, explain option one, explain to us what this entails, everything that it entails.
Okay, if option one is what is chosen, you really have 2 calendar choices to look at. The option one, which is, and that's again on the calendar choices Anna has provided. Really you have 2 choices to look at. Do we keep fall break or do we take fall break away? Because we still have to add in days from where we didn't start on August the 3rd. So if we had a start date of August the 17th, but we took no fall break, so we took fall break away. This is taking the day before Thanksgiving away, no Martin Luther King Day and no President's Day because we've missed 8 instruction days. So we have to add those 8 days on somehow. So that would end us on May the 26th, backing off those 5 days if we were able to May 19th. The second option is if we start August the 17th and we kept the fall break, we could take away Veterans Day, Martin Luther King Day, and President's Day. So then we would have to add 5 days on to the end of the year because we have to add on 8. We took 3 away. So that has us ending June the 3rd, backing off 5 days would be May the 26th. So that would be the 2 options for the calendar because we got to make up those 8 days that we have missed.
Which do you think the teachers would prefer?
Based on the survey, they were fine. The last thing they did not want to take away, of course, was fall break. That was the last, I think, the one that had the least amount. Correct, Chase?
Fall breaks in October.
Yes. That was the one that was the least amount chosen.
But we've had a break since last March.
We have.
I mean, you know, and we're gonna start on August the 17th, and then in October, we're gonna take fall break.
Mhm. And two, if we take fall break away, in essence, we're getting out May the 19th, which is pretty much what we would have got out of anyway.
Well, and let me ask you this question. If you were, okay, you can put yourself in the role of a teacher or a student.
Mhm.
If you were in Florida and you had internet access and you had a laptop, you could essentially do what you do at home.
Yes. Great.
Good teacher do it.
Mhm.
So walk us through the option then.
Okay, the full thing again,
No, option
the
one.
calendar.
Everybody's talking option one, so tell us
About option one.
before we vote,
Okay.
we want to know specifically, option one, tell us how this is going to work.
Okay, option one, school would start August the 17th. So all students would be virtually, so they would not be on the site at the building. Staff members will be on site. So teachers, assistants, any employees will be at their school building working starting August the 17th. Students will be held accountable for their grades for their projects based on what Ms. Miller said, project-based assignments. Have you been on there? Have you done it? Nutritional service would be provided for students. And it'll be provided two ways, through bus routes with our assistants and our bus drivers going the normal routes. But again, the parents have to contact Cassie to say, I want my child to receive food. Or they can come to Mountain City Elementary between the hours of 11 and 12 and receive food.
Right there. They've all got email addresses.
Mhm.
So are we gonna send out an email stating that they need to talk to Kathy?
We can't, when we've sent out information to our students, this is how you access it. I don't know how many have been on there yet because this is new for our students too. So I think you have to have it from the parents though, correct? And she has created a form for us to post tomorrow, depending on what you approve.
Post it all, I put it in press, whatever we need to do.
That will be posted and out. So devices, we've talked a lot about devices. So that's something we're going to have to work on our end, is how we're going to go about getting devices out. I think we need to add a statement that our computer labs will be open for those who need access not only to a device, but also internet access. And I think we're going to have hours, whether it be during the day or even after school. Some parents can't get their child here after school. Yes, mask required, distance, and we'll have to have an employee in there with them.
And sanitation.
All that.
Can we do like the barriers, like some places, like the plexiglass, and the plexiglass?
The plexiglass really doesn't help you though, because, no.
And I don't know that
You
we
got
can
those
get
little barriers, help me out here, Wendy, you got those little barriers that makes people feel better, but if you cough or you got this, it's going right around it.
I didn't know that.
So it would be spreading them out.
Brett, this Christmas vacation here, starting on the 18th,
Uh-huh.
to the 31st, can you decrease some of those days?
We could. We've always given 2 weeks at Christmas. I mean, we have,
I mean, like the,
You don't have
said there,
but we have to give them, that is in contract. That is in board policy. We have to, and it's in state board policy, we have to give them 10 vacation days. So that is where we always get our 10 vacation days is from Christmas break. We have to give them that for state board policy. Learn something new too.
Didn't realize that.
Yeah.
And that's also why, and I'm kind of surprised you haven't questioned it while we're not starting on September the 7th. But that is in the board policy. You cannot take September 7th away from them. You cannot take Labor Day.
We can't take Labor Day or Good Friday away from them, and then they have to have the 10 vacation days.
That's good.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
tell us more about it.
Okay, so we need to work more with devices, but open up the computer labs safely. We have extended our internet access, but again, that goes back to the computer lab. We do have student email addresses that staff will be using, kids will be using. Kids Corral and Kids Country we have on here will not be available, but I think by the way you all have talked,
Yeah, if we could
will be available.
make it available.
I'm keeping my mouth shut. Because I don't think if you're gonna have any kids, you shouldn't have any kids.
But we're going to open up our computer lab.
But during those 2 weeks, you're gonna open up the computer lab too?
I think we're going to have to based on,
Well, this is probably going to continue on. You're talking 2 weeks. What's going to change in those 2 weeks? I don't think it's going to change. I think if anything, it'll probably get worse.
We're gonna be paying assistants
uh
for the days, because assistants not staff.
yeah, that's what we had talked about.
Which we got, I guess, assistants gonna be used to help with the food program too.
But we do have a lot of assistants. I mean,
You got assistants, plus you got the cooks that are gonna, which they're gonna be preparing, I guess, but.
Because if you go virtual, then we'd still have the same problem with our assistants and food service as if we started September 8th. They wouldn't be paid, right? Or would they?
We'll go for virtual.
Yep.
On the 17th, and all my people will be.
Yeah,
So
but-
yours would, the assistants would not.
no, they would if we start on the 17th.
What would they do?
Well,
That's how it's saying, like.
No, I mean, other than Kids Country. If we didn't have them in Kids Country,
They can assist with the buses, food delivery.
And some of the special education assistants will be delivering services online. They're gonna participate in the training because some of the students, IEP, say that they'll have support of an assistant in the regular classroom. So we're gonna have to do that remotely. So several of the special ed assistants will be.
let's write down our question for you at the end of this is going to be devices in Kids Country. So tell us some more of how this is going to work. Finish.
my list. We do have on here employees can bring their school-age children with them, but they have to keep them in their classrooms. And then per the Governor Lee's executive order, activities are allowed for TSSAA. So that is the reopening plan. So really devices and then Kids Country, Kids Corral.
So what happens with kids? If I'm a kid, if I'm a parent and I got a kid who's in school in August 17th, what do I do on August 17th?
Well, in reality, this is our thinking. Again, we'll have to, I guess, delve through this a little bit more. You're going to be contacted by your teacher via email, via phone call. They're going to have to contact you and say, this is what you're going to be doing in your classroom. And these are the requirements you're going to meet. Some of them will have Google Meet virtual options. School principals, they're going to have to do videos, orientation videos for our parents, for our students. I mean, it's all this we're going to have to get out next week. So our students are going to know what they need to do. Our parents need to know what they need to do. So these are things we're going to have to start working on with this information.
So when do
out.
the teachers start working?
Their work day right now is scheduled for Thursday and Friday of next week. And then I think they have a training Monday with Partners for Digital.
And that's what's gonna show them, teach them how to.
If they choose that. Those that choose the Google Classrooms or Canvas, they already know those programs, so they're comfortable with those.
Any questions on what she's explained so
I have
far?
no doubt our teachers can make this happen,
Our teachers can make anything happen. They can.
but I hate that they have to.
I do too.
They've got my full support, whatever that is.
So now go back to the three unanswered kind of questions for us to decide before we make a final vote. Devices.
Right.
So you've got a plan for computer labs for those who don't,
Mm-hmm.
and you've got teachers going to call and make a final, eliminate any confusion and get a final figure, and maybe that final figure will work out.
Yes. I mean, I think it will be the teachers calling their students and saying, do you have a device with the keyboard? And I think that's what it's going to take. And I'm Stephen and Angie and Herbie, I mean, they're the ones that deal with the instructional component. But to me, that's what it's going to take, is the teachers reaching out to the students on their roster and saying, you have a device at home with a keyboard. If not, then I think we make a list from there. Do you have internet access at home? If not, this is what we can do to help you. And y'all tell me if that's what you're thinking.
Yeah, we may want to even be a little bit lenient from now on, but with the keyboard. Like, do you have anything larger than a cell phone? Do you have a working tablet?
You have an iPad. And I think stressing that it's one per family right now, to come up with a schedule that can meet the needs if you have multiple children in your house.
But we are gonna work something out to where we don't just have first come, first served.
Yeah.
You don't have it.
Yes.
I mean, we've got to provide.
Yeah. We will figure out a way.
As far as internet, I know Church of Shade's got internet. We might be able to expand that over there. Rob done such a good job in his explanation of what we were trying to do online.
He did.
I would suggest that he might appeal to those folks out there with churches and stores, food country, and all those that expand their internet to allow our kids access. He done a good job.
He did a great job.
You may even have some community groups or churches who say, hey, we're gonna, let you come in and use this and we'll tutor you.
Yeah, one of the things about expanding the network is, people working in their cars, what's gonna happen, 0 degrees.
Yeah.
So we do need a warm place for them to get in.
We hope we'll have a solution by then.
Oh, you're right, I do.
Okay, so, let me ask the board how you want to do this. Do you want to vote on these two things and then come back and talk about kids, country, and sports? Or do you want kids, country, and sports to be in this whole thing? All together? Okay, so come back and tell us kids, country. Lori?
Lori?
I'm glad you have a mask on, so I don't see your real impression. Leave it on. There are parents of 50 kids who are desperate for kids country. Well, there's 45 and 5, so that's 50. Okay, so there's 50 kids that the parents want to have, knowing everything that they know that they have, and there are assistants that you could potentially use. Tell us if that's wrong, given this new plan. Can you function and find a place to operate kids country for those 50 kids?
Even,
Be honest.
even,
Yes, that's a question.
I know you've only got 5 at Rome Creek because you shipped some of those 45 from Mountain City to Rome Creek.
We could, I'm just telling what I know, is a lot of times when we normally have kids country, we would have 1 month at Rome Creek and 1 month at Mountain City. And when they moved it to Rome Creek, a lot of the Mountain City kids wouldn't go to Rome Creek because the parents didn't want to drive.
That far. I understand that.
I'm just telling you.
Yeah.
But that may not be what's
Well,
going on now.
Yeah.
But if that's true, then Childcare, I think they'll do what
We even talked today about, is there space at Doe? Is there space at Laurel? We could actually open up Doe and Laurel as sites as well. And that, I don't know those 45 at Mountain City that are signed up. Are they Doe parents? Are they Laurel parents? But in this case, we could even open up those sites and offer that as well. Because we have assistants in those buildings and there's some space.
Now, Mountain City's pretty packed.
Mountain City's
No
packed.
extra room, is that right?
Yeah, that's the problem is there's no room at Mountain City.
Yeah, because if there's a teacher in
Because
there.
if there's a teacher in there,
Yeah.
exactly.
Rome Creek,
Open 3,
many go out.
none. Now, that's not including your library. As far as classrooms that teachers are in, they're all packed. I think there was 2 at Laurel she could use.
And we have to shift times because daycare runs from 6:30 to 6. So we would want people working from 6:30 till 1, and then people working from whatever time that I couldn't figure out in my head from 6 to 9.
So that's part of that thing we talked about a couple months ago about kids country is because of the break-in. They can't be there.
So now this is just because you need the people.
Okay,
So like you would need assistants there at 6:30 because that's when it opens.
yeah,
And then but you would also need people there at 6 o'clock when it closes. So the assistants wouldn't work their normal 8 to 3 day, they would have to work 6:30 to 1 and something else is 6.
Do you have enough?
you think? I know you ain't got nothing else to worry about. There's no,
I mean, it's in the next problem that we got to encounter is who are we gonna make coming at 6:30 and work their time, and then who are you gonna make come in later and work till 6 o'clock when they're used to working from 8 to 6:30?
Right.
That's the other thing that we talked.
And too, if one winds up with symptoms that was scheduled to work,
It's gonna close it all. isn't it?
It's gonna close it.
If I'm a parent and I depend on Kids Country, and then all of a sudden somebody, because I've got an employee whose child's 2 years old and was in daycare and got COVID from the daycare, they shut the daycare down. So then you're a parent who's depended on it, and now it's shut down, including your assistants.
Let's
So-
use assistance for the husband too. I mean, I'm not saying that you can use them for both, but do we have enough to do?
Yeah, well, and that's why we need an honest discussion, because, you know, we gotta say yes or no, and this is impacting a bunch of people. So what is the board's pleasure?
No, we said put that together, but we may have to
Change that.
split this motion to cover these two things.
What I thought. Okay. So do we want to split it too for sports? Because I know when we get into sports, we're going to have another big conversation. Tackle these one at a time?
Okay.
Yes, no?
Run it all, yeah.
Well, I don't know that we can and get the wording right.
And it may be that on the Kids Country, Kids Corral issue, we may have to find out exactly how many assistants we have that's not doing what Ms. Norton said. You know, they're not actually in there doing instruction. So how many would we have available that could do feeding and do Kids Country, Kids Corral? It might be that we need to find out how.
That's what
They can decide on kids corral right now.
Yeah, that might be something we might have to put on the board for next Thursday,
Next Thursday?
yeah.
so we can find out that information.
Because I know, because I used it when my kids were in school, and I depended on it.
Right.
And if you all of a sudden called me, which you did sometimes, and said, we don't have it today, it's kind of like, oh my gosh, what do
What am
we
I
do
going
now?
to do? Yeah, and we don't want that for parents, but I think we need to
Right.
find out those, right, Lori?
So can we agree that you all are going to come up with a plan and present to us Thursday?
So we're going to remove. They're hourly.
Well, I thought we'd done something different with that. I didn't think they were hourly, because we changed that.
That's why we went to Russell today.
We based it on 1,402.5 hours.
Yeah.
But we technically don't call it a salary. So there's still, the salary schedule for them is still broken down into a salary or an hourly rate.
We changed it. Paying on snow days, days we were.
Correct.
Yeah. So the 13 days, they are paid now. They're paid for those 13
That's what we
days.
changed a few years ago.
But we would have to push a lot of money into the salary schedule to make them salary, because it has to average out on pay days that have 13 days that they're still getting above minimum.
Think about it is, if their supervisor sets a schedule and has a meeting with them, in this time, we're gonna have to be structuring your schedules. Somebody come in at 6:30 this morning to one to 6 in the afternoon. I mean, if I worked a job out there, that was my boss, and she told me that, I guess I'd have to do it. Wouldn't I, Harry?
I would hope so. So you come up with a plan for us
And we'll put that
For
on the
next
board agenda
Thursday.
for next Thursday. Okay.
in sports.
I guess, I mean,
Well,
actually, two NCAA says, I mean, they've got the ground rules out there.
Yeah.
And we know that if our team's, quarantined, we can't play ball, and we know our opponent's team, we can't play ball, so I don't know if there's a decision to be made there, is there?
Really, right now, all that we're doing is when the quarantine's lifted, they're able to come back to practice. I mean, that's what we're doing right now.
and that's gonna be on the 10th as of right now, is that correct?
For high school football and volleyball, some of them, it just depends. Like I said, golf had a match today. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
it varies depending on the sport and the school.
Middle school's not, they're still
Okay, so
Except middle school football, they're out till the 14th.
saying, okay.
I'll be any liability share if, say they came to Johnson County and one of their players went back and had COVID. Is there any liability from that county?
Could be,
They could prove negligence.
Well, I think that didn't Didn't they address that too? Read something in the paper today, can't remember. I think TWSAA addressed that, I think.
I'm sure they did, because otherwise you'd have,
Everybody's got the same question.
Right. I don't foresee us playing an actual football match up until September. I really don't. Yeah, I mean, hopefully, but I don't see us, I don't.
We need second decision on that. We do that Thursday too.
Well, I would too, trust me. Yeah.
Ask that question, and
Okay.
then we'll put that on the board agenda for Thursday, if
Okay.
that's okay with everybody.
The only thing about that, I mean, my daughter plays sports, but my kids play sports, so they're wanting to play.
Yeah.
You know, and just keep this in mind, you know, just because we have a set day for most of them to come back on the 10th or 14th, we go from the isolation period to their test date. So I'm gonna be all of them.
Right.
I've got that documented, it can come back when.
Okay.
So, if this case arises, we start with that one, so they won't be, you know, mixed with the ones that we let come back that were already quarantined and had their time up.
Okay.
And
Makes sense.
14 days. Yeah.
It's 10 if you're positive, you're in isolation for 10 days. Plus 3, because we're keeping our 72-hour thing with Johnson County Schools. They initially said on CDC.
Okay.
We just decided to do 72, and then if you are just quarantined, if you were only a contact, it's 14 days plus 3. So we're just 17.
the reason for that is you don't necessarily catch it on that first day, so it takes a few days for you to get it. A lot of people are getting tested too soon. Okay, so do we have a motion?
So let me just make sure I have this clear. Kids Country, Kids Corral, we're going to provide information next Thursday. Sports, we're going to provide more information. Those that can come back Monday to start practice, is that? Okay.
I think that's what everybody's,
Okay.
Need a motion on option 1 and what's.
well, we need a motion, period, on, if yours is option 1, then that'd be your motion.
Yeah, I'll make a motion and we accept option 1. The virtual starting on the 7th.
I'll say.
Okay.
Question.
Okay, hang on just a second. We got a motion by Mr. Payne. We got a second by Mr. Matheson, and now we're open for discussion.
Is there any way, to add into that if we need changes that we don't have to come back? If they need to change it on their own, give us a phone call, change it,
Change what? What are they gonna change?
the option. In between meetings.
I wouldn't think so. I mean, the motion is to go full virtual.
Okay, so as long as you don't think it's needed, that's fine. You think it,
Well, I don't think anything's gonna change to the better, is it?
Well, I think,
Like, between now, because you got on here reassess the situation.
so when we reassess the situation on 28th, I think what Kevin's saying is giving us the right to just call you all and say, this is how we feel like we need to go, instead of coming in front of the board again and adopting a new plan. Is that
Well,
what-
you know, part of our problem is we got to give notice. So we can't meet unless we give 3 days notice. So by that time, so do you want to add that to it?
if it's with the pleasure of the rest of it.
But let me ask you this question. So if they decided, hey, on the 28th, we're going to go back to school full time. I disagree. Glenn disagrees and Gary disagrees, but you two agree we can't vote. I don't know that you can change it. I mean, they got time. If they're virtual school and the conditions change, they could call a called meeting and we could have the 3
Well,
days.
I was just throwing that out there to see if it was.
Yeah, I think that's the way we'd have to do that, because we would have to make a decision, because we may not all agree and we got to vote. I mean, ultimately, we're the ones making the decision, so.
But then if we see that it gets close to the 28th, if we see that it gets close to the 28th and we have to remain virtual, then we can just continue
Well, this is for virtual.
that. But after the 28th, we can just continue. We won't have to have another called meeting
I wouldn't think so.
unless we make changes. Okay.
What were you gonna say, Miss?
Oh, I was going to say, do we just need to accept all meeting recess, but
Well,
after that.
yeah, okay, so the motion then is for option 1, full virtual from August the 17th through the 28th. The director and her staff are gonna reassess the situation. If nothing changes, we don't come back. If they feel like it needs to change, they would then ask for another called meeting and the board would meet again. Is that?
Yep.
You got that? Phew. All right, any other discussion? I know not everybody is gonna be happy with this. Obviously, you've got less than 50% who wanted this option. I know everybody's got their own opinions, hopefully, and I think they will. Everybody will join in and work to the best of the students. Prior to taking this vote, I just want to say thank you to you and all your staff, because I think you have, I know the stress. I've kept contact with Dr. Simcox. I know the stress that you guys have been under and the effort that you and the teachers are making, and I think it's tremendous. Hopefully, we can be of help if we need to be, so. All right, call the roll.
Mr. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Payne?
Yes.
Mr. Matheson?
Yes.
Ms. Reese? Yes. Mr. Carlson?
Yes. Okay, so we need two motions you've got for us to approve the plan. I guess the second motion is discuss and approve the 2020-2021 school calendar due to these changes.
Yeah.
So we have option 1, 2,
Well, really, option 3 is no longer needed.
so we have option 1 or 2, and really the difference here is fall break or no fall break. And that's the big times, isn't it?
Correct. Really, the main difference is with option 1, there's no fall break, and we took the Wednesday before Thanksgiving because we had to have 8 days. So we took the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. There's no Martin Luther King Day and no President's Day. Option 2, we kept fall break, but we took away Veterans Day, Martin Luther King Day, and President's Day, and we added 5 days to the end of the calendar.
We don't have any issues on Martin Luther King Day? Take that away.
Well, that is one of those days that the board has the discretion to take away Martin Luther King and President's Day. I mean, we can keep that, we just have to add a day on.
Well, I'm just asking.
Well, and when we miss for snow, those are the days that we don't.
Right, I know we've done President's Day before.
Right, but now we can keep it, yeah, we just gotta add a day on somewhere, or take it from somewhere.
Okay, so do we have a motion on, and your motion would be, your motion would be to go for option 1, or your motion would be for option 2? And
I
then,
make a motion for option 1.
okay, we have a motion for option 1. Have a second?
You know, if anybody's got any plans, I mean, they really can't make a plan this time.
Now that I do know there,
You really can't go anywhere.
That's true. That's what I was
Second.
Okay, we have a second by Mr. Mattson.
I don't know, I know there's been a few people that had some trips scheduled. I don't know if there's.
You could still take a trip and take your computer and get internet access and work
We're
on,
still virtual.
I mean, this is the best of both worlds. And if you, in doing this calendar, you got built-in snow days and we got days for flu, but what we're saying is that we may have a snow day, but we say that virtual is still going to meet if we're doing this at that time.
Correct.
Any other discussion? So the motion is to go with option 1, which is a start date of August the 17th, eliminate fall break, remove Wednesday, November 25th, no Martin Luther King Day, no President's Day, end the date with 180 days, May the 19th, and 5 built-in snow days, end date May 26th.
Yep.
All right, call the roll.
Mr. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Matheson?
Yes.
Mr. Payne?
Yes.
Ms. Reese? Yes. Mr. Carlson?
Yes. I also want to say to the board, thank you, because this is a big decision for us. I know I've gotten a lot of feedback from folks, both, every way, you know, and it's kind of like having to make the decision. And again, I just want to say thank you. You all have done a good job, and I know that it's only just beginning. Mr. Mattson, do you have anything you want to add?
Like I said, staff has done a good job. Plan before us. I hope we pick the right one.
I do too. Mr. Payne?
Feel the same way, you know, I know some people wanted to stay with days, but with, the information we got from our lawyer today, option 2 and 3, we just didn't do it. Option 1 was the best.
Yeah, the health department's rules and regulations would not let us, I don't think, get past first day. Ms. Reese?
I just want to say I appreciate everything that everyone's done. I know it's been a very difficult job and a very difficult decision to make too. But I think we worked really hard on it and we appreciate it.
Mr. Long?
I just can't, it's unbelievable the way that we can just work together and get these things accomplished. And I know it's still not done yet. But I think it'll come off. These folks know what they're doing. We've got a good staff.
You have anything you want to add?
I just appreciate y'all's support. You know, we do have a great staff, and you know, more than anything, we'd love to have our kids back in the building, but it's not safe right now to have our students back. And I hate to say that, it's not only as director, but as a parent. And my child wants to be back in school as well, but we want to make sure they're back when it's the right time. So,
Well, and honestly, and I'll just finish it. Honestly, I don't think there's an option,
no, there's not, sadly.
because I think the first day we get back, just like the football team, all of a sudden you got people having it, coaches having it, they take it home to their families, and it's spreading like wildfire. So I don't think we had a choice.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. Thank you, everybody. There's nothing else, adjourn the meeting. How many people did we have, Rob?